Good morning to all of you. Welcome back to Namaste Lake Chapala and to our discussion on living within our immortal self. The single immortal self that exists, which you are, which we share, which makes no sense. And yet it does make total sense when you are in the experience of that sharing, in that joining. When we join together, as we do here, for example, or as we do here at Namaste, there is an alchemy that takes place within our hearts, within our experience, where we know what can be known, as opposed to trying to know what can never be known. The separate split self can never be known because it's not really there, and it's the experience of what is true, what is there, what is lovable, that allows us to access that immortal self, which we are as one. Remember, there is only a single extension of love and loveliness of God, of the beloved, and you are it, not as an individual separate self or a body or a personality. The experience of immortality is simply the experience that none of those things are. And what truly is your immortal awakened soul. But now we choose to come into a direct experience of that, to have a direct experience of your immortality and to become immortality specialists. Once again, I just like the idea of giving someone a card when they ask you what you do. I'm an immortality specialist. Oh, that's going to start a conversation. So really quickly, before we go over the second key, I just want to, within a minute or two, just sort of sum up where we've come so far. So several days ago, we talked about the 5 pillars of immortality. Let me just tell you what those 5 pillars are one more time. The first is the self, with a small s, continues to reincarnate until there is no self left. As long as you continue to define yourself as a separate self, you'll continue in a cycle until that cycle is broken by realizing that I am immortal. The I am presence within me is immortal. So that's number 1. Number 2, immortality cannot be achieved, only realized. The truth of who I am, my immortality, is not something I get after I've done whatever it is I think I need to do or achieve whatever it is I think I need to achieve. It simply comes through the acceptance, the full and incomplete acceptance and sharing of what is true. That holy joining we were talking about. Number 3, being the symbol of death, immortality of the physical body is impossible. Most people, when they hear immortality, being immortal, they think like this superhero sort of idea. I'm going to be immortal in my body. I'm never going to die physically. Well, that's not what immortality is. This is really the experience of the physical body, and that separate self-identity simply aren't real. They never were. So how could something that's not real ever become immortal? Immortality is the full acceptance and vibratory experience of what is real. Okay, number 4, the immortal self cannot be realized, or can be realized, through a consistent dissolving of the identified self. A consistent dissolving of the identified self, revealing the sun imprisoned at the center. We talked about that salt person with the ocean waves slowly washing over that salt person until it finally dissolves, and that core, that sun, that radiating light, is finally broken free. This is immortality. And finally, when the highest state of ecstasy is reached, the sun at the core of one's being is released, initiating an ascension experience. This is our entry into this experience. And yesterday we began talking about the 3 keys. We're going to go into number 2 today, but the first key, if you remember, was never putting anyone up on a pedestal unless we put everyone on a pedestal. You see, it's okay, it's fine. In fact, it's recommended to take, let's say, a teacher, a guru, whatever it may be, and put them high on a pedestal, as long as you're willing to be there with them and you put everyone else there as well. That's the key. Not to separate them, to make them special. Here you are, the Holy One, the perfect one. And look at me, look at the rest of us, how imperfect we are. This just locks us into that cycle. Much like the story you may have heard me tell before, when my daughter was maybe 15, I took her to Holland. I was speaking at a conference there, and I was on the opening night, and I shared whatever it is I shared, and I used to sing these songs where I would use a looper, and it was pretty impressive. And afterwards, a woman, as we were leaving, because my daughter wanted to go back to London, afterwards a woman came up to me, and she had to share something. She really needed to share something. And what she said was, almost word for word, she said, I came to this conference because of you. I've read your books, I have your music, and I knew from everything I read that you're a holy man. And immediately I started to think, uh-oh, where is this going? Of course, I looked at my daughter, and she has that look, that roll in her eyes like, here we go. Someone else to tell him how holy he is. And the woman continued and said, and then on Thursday night you came and you were on the stage and you were sharing, and I realized something when you were singing with all of those sounds. I realized something that I never thought was possible. I realized suddenly that I was completely disappointed. My daughter loved that. I said, why were you disappointed? She said, well, because, in reading your books and everything, I think I understand. In reading my books, you thought that I was this holy guru, enlightened person, and then I came out and I sang and I was maybe funny and told stories. She said, yeah. And you were disappointed, and because I didn't live up to what you expected in that Holy One. She said, yes, exactly. And finally I said to her, so my real question is, who is it you're really disappointed in? Was it me or was it you? And I don't know if she got that, but I knew it was important, because her disappointment had nothing to do with me. Her disappointment had to do with the fact that she had put me up on a pedestal and needed me to play a role, play the role of the enlightened one, talking different, acting different, so that she could maintain that separation. If we put someone up on a pedestal and think they're the Holy One, all I'm really doing is putting me and everyone else separate from them. And once again, I'll say it again, it's perfect, it's recommended to lift one high, a guru, a teacher, whatever it may be, as long as you put everyone else in the same place, as long as you're able to see everyone else as that, to see them as God sees them, to lift the whole, not the special one. So that was the first key. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the second, and it's very simple. It may even just swift right by you. But if you're willing to put this one into practice, I promise you in a very short period of time, even though there is no time, but you're going to begin to really experience this. And here it is. I'm going to give it to you in just 3 words. Act as if. Act as if what I'm saying to you is true right now. That you are an immortal being in the full radiant experience of that immortality. It would be the same as saying, act as if you're enlightened. We could even say pretend, because there may still be a gap between this experience and what you are experiencing. There may still be the pull toward the separate split self. But what happens when you pretend something that's already true, because you are immortal, because you are enlightened, and when you pretend to be something that you are, the experience of that follows naturally. The experience of that wholeness, of that immortality, takes over, because what you're doing in acting as if, you're actually dissolving those blocks between you and the experience. Because what you've been doing until now is acting in another way, acting as if you're separate, as if you're not whole, as if you're not immortal, acting as if not. The shift begins when you act as if, when you actually pretend that this is true. How do you do that? Well, the first question you might be asking, well, how would an immortal being, an enlightened being, act? Would they walk around like the great enlightened one and put people beneath them? No. Here's what they would do. They would do what's in step one. They would do what is in the first step that we talked about yesterday and a little while ago. They would lift everyone up. Everyone would rise. They would see everyone through the eyes of Christ or unified consciousness. They would see everyone as God sees them. That's it. So the first two keys are like this. They go hand in hand. When I act as if I am eternal, as if I am immortal, as if I am whole and enlightened, all that really means is I see everyone in every situation, no matter what, as God sees it, as God holds and loves them. And if I'm willing to just even spend an hour a day, let that be a practice. Spend an hour a day, just maybe beginning with the meditation, saying, I'm now going to focus on acting as if, pretending that I am an immortal being, an enlightened being. How would an immortal, enlightened being act, talk, walk, maybe go for a walk, and look at every single person that you pass and see them as the whole perfect extension of the love and the loveliness of God. The single, not one of, to see everything as one. Imagine how that's going to make you feel, because it is in giving that we receive. It is in loving that we love. As I walk around and begin to give this gift to the people around me, I begin to feel it exploding inside me. I begin to feel my immortal self waking up, taking over, the split, separate self beginning to dissolve, the blocks to that awareness beginning to dissolve and be replaced with light, with holiness, with grace. So I'm going to challenge each one of you. I want each one of you today to spend at least a half hour, maybe more if you can. Go for a walk, go for a drive, whatever you need to do so that you can see people, if possible, and see everyone as, you could say, as Christ would see them, as whole, as complete, as immortal. Look at their immortal soul, the single extension of the love and the loveliness of God. And allow that same radiation to penetrate the armor around your heart, to rip it open so that you feel the same within yourself. That's the second key. It's simple, but it will change your life. And now, you know who we're going to next. Victoria, good morning to you.
Yes, James. Oh, you know I love this game. Act as if. So what a great description of Christ's vision. To see, to know, and to love. That's it. You know, and the reason it works, and it has to work, is we're always either strengthening one thought system of separation and weakening the other of light, or we are strengthening the thought system of love and light and weakening the ego thought system of separation. What better way to dissolve something? Just weaken it by not let it die of neglect, not paying any attention to it. I love that. And this was the image I just got while you were talking. This is what I'm going to do, especially for the game today. I met my cousin yesterday, and she was telling me she had vertigo. And I've never had vertigo, but it's not very pleasant, I guess. But what she described is what I realized I am in a state in if I'm not in a state of vision. if I'm not in that immortal state, that eternal state of knowing, seeing, and loving, then I'm in an ego state that could be described as vertigo. I just have gotten so adapted that I know how to hold the walls to walk around. And I realized, oh no, when I can't know, see, and love, I'm gonna, there we go, stop, take to my bed, stop right away, and realize I don't know how to walk across the road. I don't know how to say hello, goodbye. I don't know anything. And anyone that's had vertigo knows that that is an extreme state where you know enough to just collapse. And collapsing and choosing, all right, I'm not in my right mind, that's for sure, but I'm at least not going to strengthen my wrong mind. I'll just wait here for the troops to come and get me. The light team, they'll come, they'll get me. I just will not engage what is false anymore. And for me, that's the simple way to, if I'm not loving and playing and giving and free-forming love, then I have vertigo. I am lost. I better just stop and sit down or collapse somewhere and wait for the light to be restored to my vision, because I do not want to endorse, support in any way that thought system of fear and hatred. I want to live in the thought system of holy oneness and our holy light that we share. So thanks for these directions. I'm going to start right now. I'm playing the game.
Good point. We can start right now just by looking at the people. If you put it into gallery view, you'll be able to look and see all of these people here. And I can look at Judy and know that Judy is the holy immortal self itself. I can look at John, and I can look at Ted and Lauren and Joy and Daniela and Teddy and Bob, all of you, and just hold still for a moment. I love that vertigo analogy. Hold still and just look and see. Hold still and see who is really in front of you. We have an opportunity right now just by going to gallery view. So look around at these beautiful people and see them as God sees them. And you're going to begin to feel a spark inside you. You're going to feel something waking up, like an unborn baby almost that's moving in your womb, because it feels the presence. What happened to John the Baptist within Elizabeth's womb when the Christ came into his presence? It moved. It began to actually move within Elizabeth's womb because it felt the light. And you are called to feel that same light. And if you do, that holy child within you is going to begin to move as well. So thank you, Vicki. That was perfect as always. How about you, Teddy? Would you like to share anything?
So, I was listening and two things came to me. At some point, it really comes down to acceptance rather than resistance, and feeling the resistance and accepting all things exactly as they are. Because until you accept all things exactly as they are, you can't accept anything. You're not accepting anything, actually. Right. You're just in resistance. And, as it says, as Jesus tells us, like total revelation of what we are and what is happens, it dawns on you of itself when you're ready. And the readiness isn't based on your resistance to the world. It's based on the acceptance of what is. And the allowance for what is to be true, because truth is true and nothing else is true. And that's, in a sense, how the false begins to fall away. And then when you were talking, it's something I realized is we can only express based on a level of realization that we're on. We can only talk about it from the point of view where we're seeing it at any given time. And the willingness to, like we've been talking, the willingness to not know and be wrong and to question our own thinking, even in terms of thinking that we know what it is to be eternal or immortal or whatever we want to call it. Even thinking that we know that what that is, it sets up a block to the understanding or the ability for it to dawn on you of itself. So it's interesting that, and that's one of the things that I've learned in groups like this. We're not all at the same. Ultimately, we're all single, whole, and perfect in reality, and nothing is ever going to change that, including the dream of space and time. But within the dream of space and time, which is based on not that, and it is linear, everybody seems to be at a different level and expressing from wherever they are. The acceptance of my brother exactly where he is, exactly as he is, it sets up, a joining and an energy that allows us to go further than we thought and become more inclusive in our understanding. So, it's just good to allow people to live based on what they realize and not resist what they realize or attack what they realize, and live in the acceptance, because the energy of acceptance and joining allows both who join to go further than they are. And reality is the sum total of all that was created by God as eternal, as immortal, as infinite. So it's just good for me to remember these things, because, I don't want resist not evil, resist not temptation. What Jesus is saying is don't resist the temptation, but he's not saying to give into it. He's just saying don't resist it, because recognize the resistance as being what is part of you, and then not want to resist. Just be in acceptance.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Teddy. Yes, to not resist ultimately what is not there, but to be in the full acceptance of my own humble experience, to come with wholly empty hands unto God. That takes humility. And maybe this is the perfect place for us to now enter into that experience of seeing it everywhere, with everyone, spending time every day. But I can't know what that is until I know what that is. I can't do that in my mind. It will come to me of its own when I come with wholly empty hands, without my concepts of what I think it is. And also, all we're really doing here is we're setting the stage for that experience to be triggered. Not to try and force it, not to try and do anything, but just welcome. And that's what we're here. And I welcome all of you. I am so grateful to have all of you be part of this holy experience with me.